they try to get the client, whoever's texting, to give them their name or give something or ask a question that'll get them to divulge an area or like something. That's what they do. And they do demographics, which is nice. Like they get age. National Suicide Prevention Line doesn't do demographics, which I think is interesting. So they don't get age and gender or like anything like that on the calls. I mean, so that to me is interesting, yeah. But I think the text crisis line is a really good resource for our youth to use.
Yeah, I mean, we even have more clients that would prefer communicating via text. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can't get that approval from our county because we're contracted, so it would mean they would have to give us a lot more staff. We're already asking for more staff to cover the line. We want to double our team so we can respond and prevent burnout and all that stuff. So, but yeah, that one's really good. Sorry, I'm just making sure. So when we do safety plans, like there's a copy of what our safety plan looks like on there. I really like that. I like that we get like, it's not just triggers, but goes deeper into warning signs. Like, well, how do you know this is your trigger? And really getting to those questions deeper to the root of the issues so to help the client increase their own awareness. I think it's on page, 4. And the parents. So when the parents see us do this, they learn how to ask the questions. Anybody can ask questions. Anybody can be a support. You don't have to be a therapist to help somebody who's experiencing mental health symptoms or suicidal ideation or self-injurious behaviors. You just got to be a voice, an ear to listen, and so they know that someone cares. I was doing groups in Santa Barbara for 13 Reasons Why and had youth in each of the groups, and every single one of them said, we just want our parents to listen to us. We know they're not going to agree with us, but can they even just listen to our opinion? And they don't feel like they have a voice at all. And these are kids that are like straight A students to the kids that are struggling in school or have some behavioral stuff going on and at risk in different ways. So all of them say the same thing. And I know 13 Reasons Why was a huge controversy, but it got people talking about some really tough topics like sexual assault and bullying and suicide ideation and what adults are out there really to help, things like, and intimate partner violence, things like that. So even though it's controversial, parents wanting their kids to watch it, it's having us talk about it, which is good in the community, not to be afraid. Don't be afraid of the word suicide. Don't be afraid to ask your clients, like, are you wanting to hurt yourself? What are you wanting to do? Like, you'd be surprised, the non-judgmental questions, what people will disclose to you if they know you're really interested in what they have to share. They'll tell you anything if they know you really care and we're not judging them. And so just don't be afraid of those questions, to ask those questions, and then know where to get them help if they need it. And when they do disclose, like, well, okay, who could you go to? Can we call this person? And so I really encourage mock calls too. I did this, I was a therapist in the schools for 6 years, and I did this all the time because kids aren't comfortable calling, even back then. Which seems like technology really, like there wasn't these phones when I was doing that, just like 4 years ago, which is crazy, like 5 years ago. Not every kid had one of those, but doing a mock call, we're totally open to that, and calling and saying, well, I have someone here, or I'm gonna have this person in my office at this time, can someone be available? And then we'll like put them in the system and write it down, and we'll tell them, these are the questions we're gonna ask you, and sometimes the kids will say, well, do they have to tell my parents? Yes, if there's any risk of any harm, we have to talk to their parents. But if they're calling us in the middle of the night because they're having a panic attack, we don't have to talk to their parents. They don't have to wake up their parents for that. We'll talk to them and spend time on the phone with them. We've actually had a kid call us the other night that I was really excited about because he called us in a panic attack, and then my staff called me to consult if she needed to call the parents. No risk, no suicide ideation, nothing. I missed the call for some reason. There's been some phone issues with Verizon, and she's like, oh, well, when I called back, he put his mom on the phone. He didn't even care. But it would have been okay if he didn't, even though he's 13. It was a panic attack. We've seen him before. We know what his risk is. And so I should let you know, every staff has a supervisor behind them. So I'm backup supervisor. Like, there's 4 of us. We rotate 24 hours, 72 hours. So no one's making these decisions on their own. They're consulting, really collaborating to make the best decision for the families and the providers. We get calls and we respond to therapist office for at-risk youth, and we work with that person to figure out the best plan and what we can do. And we write those holes in the provider offices too. And then we just wait for AMR to take them to the ER to get medically cleared, and then we can place them. Trying to think. Of course, there's warning signs on here. You guys, I don't think I need to go through that unless you want to. What I will say though, I think the biggest there's all these normal warning signs, right, that we all know, like graves or isolating or irritability, all the stuff that looks like normal teenage behavior. And what I like to share with people is, if it's something that's ongoing, it's probably not normal teenage behavior. And what parents always will blow their kids off or minimize. Oh, they're just being a teenager. Well, maybe it's not that. So maybe we should look into it. Maybe they need some support with something. But also, those kids that put on that face of everything's fine, I'm okay, everything's fine, and they're overly happy, or they just, you just never know. You ask them that question, and then boom, Pandora's box comes out. And they're the kids that on paper, you would never suspect anything. And I was glad to hit those kids when I was in the schools, because on paper, they're in the clubs. They're the ones running the clubs, straight A's, doing sports, and then you find out they're actually suicidal, and they engage in self-harming behavior and hide it, and they have PTSD, because there's all this trauma that nobody knows about. So sometimes you've got those type of kids, you want to really sort of dig a little bit more, because, or we'll do that, because they could be at risk too. It just doesn't look like these normal warning signs that are posted everywhere. One of the lead singer of Linkin Park, I'm blanking on his name. Chester, thank you. Thank you. His wife, I was really happy his wife posted a video of him playing with his kids 2 days before he completed suicide, because it doesn't look like sad and crying like the commercials, to be honest. People put on a face just every day and can look completely normal.
You don't have to be crying.
Right. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be on your mind 24/7, but there's the struggle with those symptoms or reminders and things like that. Definitely, that's a good analogy for it. So just those are things to look for, and if you got parents coming to you like, I'm really worried about my child, this is my concern. But I really do encourage those mock calls, because it gets them comfortable to call us, and it gets the parents comfortable. Sometimes parents think that we are CWS or not. We've seen that a lot in the Hispanic population right now. I won't get political, but where they're afraid to call and ask for help now. They don't want us to come to their home because they're afraid we're going to report them, which we try to tell them, no, that is not what we're here for at all. We want to help you, and your information is not going anywhere else, we promise, unless you were going to hurt your child or they disclose some abuse. That still is not what we're here for as far as that's concerned. So we really want the Hispanic population to continue to reach out, but they are scared and they're not reaching out as much as we saw them reaching out a year ago.
Question. So you said you guys only treat clients that have Medi-Cal. If they don't have it, do you help them apply for that? And if they don't, do you refer them somewhere else? Where do they go?
We connect them to the place to apply for that. But we respond to any crisis no matter what. You could have no insurance, private insurance. It doesn't matter. Our contract is to respond to everybody. It doesn't matter. Okay. So responding to crisis and doing follow-up, we are going to do that. It's the ongoing, like doing that full clinical assessment. Because if they don't have insurance, we have nowhere to link them to. Okay. So when they have Medi-Cal and they're really serious, we're trying to get them into behavioral wellness. Or if they're not going to take them, we try to go through Holman. But that's a mess right now too, as far as getting people getting providers. And we try to get them connected. And I don't care if they go past 60 days. If they're not linked, I'm not closing them. I don't care if we're not getting reimbursed. I think it's about client care and making sure they're linked and it's not dropped. And me doing warm handouts. Like, well, maybe they need to have, because they already built a rapport with my team. The therapist or I have a couple bachelors, but the person who's doing the work, they've already built that rapport, so now they don't want to connect to the behavioral wellness, so they're scared to go to somebody else. So, hey, can they go with you to that assessment, and they can help provide the information and help you give out the information and kind of build that relationship, so that a lot of times what we see is clients will then just stop services. Like, we'll connect them, and then they won't continue. Then they go in crisis again, and then we're right back to kind of square one. And we could see the notes, and they had an appointment and they just didn't go, and then they didn't call, and people tried to reach out, and so that's the
Well,
frustrating
what can
part.
you do in that? I had a young girl from the middle of September to the middle of November.
Mhm.
3 times tried to commit suicide, twice on a school campus. They did everything, just as you're saying, safety came out and everything.
Mhm.
Then when I saw her and she started saying, it's happening again, I'm
Yeah.
feeling these things, but the parents weren't continuing any service for her.
That might be a CWS report. That's when we consult with CWS, which we have had that happen. Or we'll make the recommendations to safety sweep, like lock up all the sharps, or they have ideation to hang themselves, lock up belts and any kind of scarves, anything like that, and they don't do that, and we come out and actually there's medication sitting on the counter, that's a CWS report. We'll consult. We won't give the name, we'll say this is what we've been doing, this is the client is still experiencing suicidal ideation, the parent doesn't seem to be connecting them, and they'll either take the report or they won't. So
That's tragic.
consulting is always the best. Oh, you'd be surprised. That's the one. Those are the parents that are most triggering to my team. Is the ones that are very aloof and minimizing and don't really follow through with things. Even the parents that get angry at their kid, they're showing some sort of feeling and
Right.
emotion. It's just that's what's underneath anger is fear generally, and they're afraid. I mean, how many of us who have kids are like got mad at our kid for hurting themselves, or like, what the hell are you doing? And then we're like, oh wait, sorry, we shouldn't have got mad at you, but that was stupid, you know. I mean, but sometimes a parent's first response is fear, and working with a parent to realize that, and the child to realize, oh, your parent actually cares about you when they're angry. Sometimes it helps their response, and they're not getting triggered by their parent. They're like, oh yeah, you're right, and kind of helping. There's that family systems work. Again, but yes, those are very frustrating parents to work with, especially when the youth want to have the service and they want to engage in the services, and then there's a barrier more with the parent. My staff went to Lompoc for this young girl. She's awesome, but the dad sort of is a barrier, so we made a couple CWS reports, and then we showed up to the house, and he there's all the cards are there, and we know they're home, but he's not answering the door, so I'm like, well, we need to consult with CWS again and see. And they took it, and they've responded, so hopefully we had to close, but we're really hoping this youth gets help that they need. Those are very frustrating. Trying to think. So not a super long presentation, but my program is very so specific, just like you guys kind of. It's like not a ton to talk about unless you guys wanted to know about any trends or like our activity. Like I said, we do about 2,000 calls a year. Been really, really busy the past few months. I mean, especially since the completed suicide, there's been a lot more attempts, and they're saying, my friend, they were a good friend of that person. Maybe they didn't even really know that person, but they're impacted by what they see on social media, so they're feeling like connected to that situation, or feel like people don't care about it, or
Would you say the triggers were for all these suicides all of a sudden?
the completed suicide that happened.
Well, I know that, but you said in the last few months it's been worse. What's the trigger for all of that?
Well, so that's a complicated question, and we get asked that a lot. I think it's a lot of different things.
Social media.
I think it's a mix of social media, and I'm not saying social media is bad. We all are. It's never gonna go away. What it is like my generation. You're being bullied at school, you got to get away from it when you went home. If home was bad, I got to get away from that and be at school. There was separation in your brain.
24 hours.
And even think about work, where like, my father's generation, like when you think about that, like you left work, and then you're home with your family. It's not like that. And you know how many times and I run 24/7, so unfortunately, that my son is used to that now, and he's like, well, I'm in the middle of playing a game, and I have to stop what I'm doing because I've got to respond to this crazy email, or these people are calling because there's a situation at juvenile hall, that kind of thing. And we don't ever turn off work now. I mean, we're all so mobile. Think about the stress level in us as adults, even separating it. Imagine a youth brain who's not developed, and then you add trauma into that they don't know how to cope. And one thing that we're also seeing is they're not conceptualizing developmentally the result of what they're going to do. So like we've actually had 10-year-olds attempt suicide. We've seen 8 to 11-year-olds so much more this year than we did a year ago.